And welcome to the new episode of Fullfunnel Live. Today we continue our account-based content topic. During the previous sessions where we invited our clients, we have seen multiple questions about account-based content strategy. And obviously our clients can present, their experience, right, which is limited to the programs that we have done together. But today we wanted to tackle the big picture, right, showing you how basically we create the account-based content strategy for ourselves, for our clients. Share with you practical examples, of course, because it makes no sense to record a podcast episode and not talking about practical examples. And we have received a lot of great questions from you guys, so we'll try our best to tackle all of them. Meanwhile, let us know, please, in the chat where you guys join us from. I'm again broadcasting from Villarreal, Valencia, Spain.
Myself from the city of Valencia, currently raining, unfortunately.
Yeah, not the typical sunny weather. We have Ukko from Estonia. Good to see somebody where our company is actually registered. Let's see, from London. Good to see you. Nikolai, great to see you again. You're probably the most, how to say it correctly, the fan that has been for us like forever almost. I feel that I know you better than some of my college friends. Thank you so much for coming all the time. Mike,
True BFF, biggest fan forever.
Yeah, Anastasia, Poland, nice to meet you. Soraya from Madrid, good to see our neighbor Barry, good to see you guys. Monica, Brussels, Kansas, Colombia, Chris, nice to meet you guys. Okay, cool. So what we want to share with you today. First of all, we want to share with you how to create a holistic one-to-many, one-to-few, and one-to-one account-based content strategy. And then we want to share with you practical examples and also demonstrate some of our playbooks just to give you an idea how different formats of content might look like. That being said, I think we can kick it off. And I think the first good point would be just to explain how content goals are different in account-based marketing comparing, let's say, to traditional content marketing. So I would be calling out you, Vlad.
Yeah, hello everybody. Yes, there will be a recording. This is the most popular question we get. There will be a recording available on the same platform if you log in tomorrow, and we publish these also on YouTube. We publish them on all the podcast platforms as well. But with that out of the way, I wanted to jump into how is content marketing different within ABM and within ABM than to the traditional, let's say, B2B. And specifically, let's dive in first into the goals. What are some of the goals? Now, we want to align the goals of your content strategy with the goals of your ABM program. And usually you will have different programs depending on whether your goal is net new pipeline and revenue versus pipeline acceleration versus expansion, renewals, etc. So if you're looking at net new pipeline and revenue, what we are looking for from content is to help us create awareness in target accounts, specifically in the buying centers, our target buying centers in our target accounts. And if there is one challenge that we repeatedly hear from salespeople is there is lack of awareness and recognition of our brand, and nobody pays attention to my messages. What we know today, people receive so much outbound that if they don't know you, they will ignore your messages. So when they don't know you, when they don't know your brand, when there is this lack of awareness, it's really hard to even start a conversation. It's also important for net new is to not only create awareness about our solution as a solution to their, let's say, top strategic challenges, but also to showcase specifically how our solution is going to help solve their challenges, what benefits they can expect. And very important in ABM, because we are in ABM, unlike with, let's say, traditional B2B marketing, we are working closely with sales. And content in ABM should help sales open doors and create opportunities for engagement, but also, as we will share later in some examples, actually help sales get insider information in target accounts to know, because at the end, ABM is about personalized marketing, personalized approach. So getting the insider information, in addition to account research, getting that insider information is really important. That's all about net new. What about pipeline acceleration? When I say pipeline acceleration, I mean deals, sales opportunities that are already in the pipeline. How can we help the sales team win more of them faster? And what is the role of content there? Well, the role of content is all about buyer enablement. It's all about helping your champions sell, because as Nate Nasrallah says in his book, Selling With, and very frequently on his speeches, is you don't sell, it's actually the champion that sells internally, especially in complex enterprise sales. And our content is there to help the champion demonstrate, let's say, the cost of inaction and the flip side, the ROI of dealing with the high priority problem that this customer account faces, to showcase specific solutions. So we're not talking about the generic product marketing, we are talking about the specific problems that this account experience and showing them exactly how we can help them with those challenges. And as well, very important is, as you're dealing with a buying committee, with a buying center, with a lot of different people, is to answer the questions that these people have, concrete questions that they have about your solution, concerns, objections, and basically provide an answer to those questions. And next to that is really all about, like I said, enabling our champion to sell our solution internally. And the final, let's say, I'll group them together: expansions and renewals. Once the deal is closed, the first thing that we want to do, and we want content to help us do that, is to accelerate the so-called time to value. We want to help our customers become as quickly as possible to get success with the solution that we are implementing there with them. And then, of course, as their use cases and priorities change and evolve, we want to show them with our content how we can help them evolve, how we can help them actually support their evolving priorities. And in some specific cases, to kind of close the loop, where expansion is actually about expanding into new buying centers, into potentially new regions or geographies, departments, etc., there is a lot of the same goals as we have with net new accounts, where we still have to create that awareness, generate demand. The only difference is that here we can use a much more personalized content. We can use our existing champions and power users, feature them in that content. But without going into a lot of details, these are the goals and how they differ for content within the ABM strategy. Now, there's other differences when it comes to content. I think when we're talking about foundations, I'd like maybe, Andre, if you can share also, what are maybe some of the differences in way that we should be thinking about the team and the role of content in that team, and as opposed to how it is in usually structured within B2B companies when it comes to content.
Yeah, the problem with let's say the content setup. So first of all, I would say that content is one of the most undervalued areas of ABM strategy, right? You tackled a lot how it's should be paired to different account-based marketing motions, right? The second problem that is in the majority of companies, we either don't have a dedicated content resource, or quite often it's a junior content marketer that doesn't have domain knowledge, right? Even in this case, you can fix that challenge. We can discuss how that's let's say content marketer can work with subject matter expert. But another problem I observed that in the bigger the organization is, the more silent this function is, which means that this, like, let's say if you have silent content team, this team doesn't care at all about ABM program success. They have own metrics, they have own calendar, they care about the corporate tone of voice, they care about press releases, they care about, the slang that in the real world you'll never use it, and your buyers, I bet, never understand this, but that's the reality. So we must tackle this before launch any ABM program. We need to get a committed content marketer that will be working alongside account-based marketing team. And if, let's say, other team members, if your ABM lead and sales rep, they don't have domain knowledge, you must have subject matter expert in your ABM team, right? This is where all the content should come from, especially, let's say, this one-to-many content that we'll tackle next in the next block. This person, basically, who is the subject matter expert? This is the person who used to work as your target buyer persona, right? This person understands the jobs to be done. This person understands the typical challenges, the daily routine, if you will, the typical internal conversations that are happening. And the most important thing, this person understands the status quo. In many cases, we are competing not with the competitors, we are competing with the status quo. It's the standard way of doing things for these companies, right? To give you a specific example, quite often we observe in many companies that, let's say, leadership or sales are hesitant or reluctant to launch account-based marketing program because they feel that you need to stop lead generation. And the first reaction is, wait, are you going to say that we need to kill our bread and butter pipeline generation channels of this outbound plus performance marketing? And you need to do a lot of change management. You need to explain why it's not working, proving it with the facts, etc. Right? And if you look at any given B2B market, this is the reality, right? A lot of companies, they don't even understand they have a specific problem or challenge just because they have done these things for years that specific way. And how can you change it? You can change it only with the content, right? You can basically, the content starts seeding the grains in the minds of your target buyers that there are inefficiencies in these processes. It starts connecting the dots for them, so they start to understand, okay, here's the inefficiency and here's how it impacts my own jobs to be done and my organizational goals, my department goals, etc. Right? So these are the keys. And without having a person who understands this, who can share anecdotes, you'll never be able to create good content. And without it, your program is likely not to perform, right? That's the problem. And I saw a lot of questions about like automating the process or like how to use AI, how to use ChatGPT. The problem is simple. You can use all of these tools, but if you don't have subject matter expert who can share these insights, your program is doomed. No ChatGPT will help you to print seven-figure deals. That's the sad reality, right? So from that perspective, account-based marketing team is ABM lead, subject matter expert, content marketer, sales, and then depending on other playbooks, you might involve other people, right? But this is the bare minimum. And now the question, who owns the process? Who owns, like, let's say, the account-based content strategy creation? And the answer is simple. The team owns it. You need to co-create it, right? All these people need to gather in one room, virtual room, doesn't really matter, offsite room, and work together through what we call the cluster challenge decomposition, right? And that's basically the next part of account-based content strategy. I think you can pick it up and explain the cluster approach.
Happy to. So in a traditional B2B marketing B2B content marketing setting, what you see very often being used are personas. And depending on the team, they might be more precise, more generic, etc. But in general, there are some problems with that. And instead of using personas, what we use typically in ABM is ideal customer profile, which consists of specific firmographics and technographics, the buying center, specific qualification, prioritization criteria, and insights into the buyer journey. But there's actually, when we look at a lot of companies and the way that they create their ICP, there are a couple of missing elements that are important for our content strategy. Okay, so first of all, what we want to do is, even when you focus, for example, on a specific industry vertical and define very precisely, let's say, qualification and prioritization criteria, what this doesn't tell you, it doesn't tell you how you should align your content with the different use cases that your customers might have, although they might be all from the same vertical. Usually, depending, especially for large enterprises, complex solutions, you will have different kinds of use cases, different kinds of challenges that your product can solve. And I think this is really the key, right? So to solve this, we further segment this into what Andre mentioned, account clusters. And account clusters is simply a group of accounts that have similar use cases and share challenges. Okay, so let me just give you two quick examples, and I think I'll use two examples that everybody knows. One, let's say that you're selling a CRM, or if you're a service company, let's say you're selling software, so a software development solution. Like two extreme examples where it's very clear that, let's say, as a software development company, you could basically do a lot of different use cases. You could help your target companies with many different challenges, or even a CRM, right? We know, like, it's a very generic solution. It's really hard to stand out. And again, the different companies will have different use cases. Now, let's say that both of these companies, they decide to focus on banks, financial service vertical and industry, and then the banks within there, even like going deeper, let's say retail banks, right? Still you still have the same problem. There could be like a multitude of use cases, multitude of reasons why their customers will actually buy their solution. And it's only when you start zooming into those use cases that you can start seeing some similarities. So let's say, for example, banks that are looking to improve their digital customer experiences and differentiate in that way because they're under pressure from the disrupting neobanks, like Wise and Revolut and all of these new startups, fintech startups in the world. They're under pressure, and they want to differentiate through these customer experiences, but they have to fight with legacy software. So this could be like a very specific use case for within that niche, right? Or like in the CRM, let's say we want to go after after, let's say, investment departments where the high churn rate of let's say investment advisors or agents, right? So this is a very specific use case that would allow us to now align our content with the challenges that these customers have. So the takeaway here is to not only define your ICP in terms of your firmographics, qualification criteria, etc., but to actually look deeper into the main use cases, jobs to be done, the main reason that the customers are buying your product, and to segment them this way. This will make it so much easier for you to align the content. And there is one more aspect within the ABM that we might ignore in a traditional B2B setting, and that's obviously the buying center. We are not selling to companies, we are selling to people and teams, or buying committees, whatever you like to call them, within those companies. And the different roles and the different people within those accounts will have different needs, will have different questions as they are, joining the buyer journey, as they are being asked for an advice or their input, or they're, part of the decision-making process. And these are the additional insights that you will need to define a good content strategy. And I mentioned one of the important aspects of our ICP is the buyer journey. And this is another topic that I like to ask Andre to address, like how do we actually align our content with the buyer journey of the target accounts and their buyer journey stage.
I think I will need to share my screen just to show you one diagram, how we think about it. And meanwhile, guys, feel free to ask any questions. We have Q&A section. I already saw a question coming from Nikolai. If you have any questions that you'd like us to cover, feel free to put your questions into that section. Now, this is the fundamental diagram that we believe you need to use in your account-based content strategy. So a couple of things here, right? You see a few axes, and if you don't see a whole screen, you can just click on zoom in on your screen. So first of all, we have different levels of demand and intent, right? And the majority of your, we don't need to repeat the B2B mantra, right? That the majority of your customers are not actually buying. You have heard about this multiple times. We always look at the current stage of buyer journey and the level of intent, right? And we separate it into basically we define 3 blocks. We have, let's say, no or low intent. And what does that mean? That means that these people are not actively looking for any solution, right? Let's say if you, I bet the majority of you are in having different marketing positions in your organization, right? And are not actively buying. But why do you come, for example, to LinkedIn or for this live podcast, right? Because you want to learn. And the same could be applied to your buyers. The majority of your buyers are in that state. Yes, they are not actively buying, but they are actively learning, right? And our goal is to align our content with their interests, right? With their jobs to be done, with sharing the industry news, right, and trends, because a lot of them might be interested in what's happening in the industry, what their peers are doing, etc. Sharing best practices, right? Despite they are not actively buying, they're all interested in how to make their life better, right? Probably this is one of the reasons why you attended this episode right now. And ultimately, our goal is to challenge the status quo, right? We need to kind of initiate or trigger or somehow influence their buying process, something that can something that can pinpoint their attention to inefficiencies, right, and better ways to do multiple processes. Now, half of your target accounts would have, let's say, medium buying intent. What does that mean? That means that there are conversations about how to make things better that are happening in the account. So what we observe typically, company missed the either company missed the revenue targets, maybe for a couple of years, or another typical problem, company growing successfully, on the local market, but is struggling to grow outside despite multiple attempts. And they usually try already multiple solutions, purchasing expensive ABM platform, hiring different types of agencies, and nothing helps, right? Another typical problem. So they try to, so for example, the company has successful SMB motion, but struggles to go up market and generate enterprise deals, right? And simply nobody in the company has the necessary skill set. And the company tries to investigate what are the best ways to solve it, right? It's not necessarily that they want to bring Fullfunnel as the consultant company. Maybe they are thinking about different technology. Maybe they're thinking about different training, whatever, right? Maybe even changes in the team. They believe that the current team doesn't have the necessary skill set. So there could be multiple ways. And why we call the medium intent? Because apparently, if the content that you create resonates with them, that could actually influence their buying process, right? They could pay attention and they could start talking to you. So from that specific perspective, we'll think about one to few pieces of content, right? Like I mentioned, for example, you are struggling to grow enterprise, right? And then we start creating the same content, basically covering that specific cluster, right? How to scale, so how to go from SMB to enterprise, right? Or how to develop enterprise motion properly. This becomes our cluster, right? And we start creating the content that is relevant for these specific companies. In this case, you need to have a couple of things, incorporate a couple of things into your content strategy. It should be step-by-step processes, explanations on how to do it successfully, and it should be proven by industry case studies, right? You can't come and just blatantly tell, hey, do this, and that, and the success is guaranteed. Probably you all have seen a couple of years ago that LinkedIn was full of generic advice, something like create valuable content and the leads will come, ungate everything and deliver value, focus on brand. And I mean, in theory, all sounds right. The problem is how to do it, right? And how to make sure that when you do it, you will generate pipeline and revenue, right? So it's easy to say, but it's hard to do. And especially it's easy to make the kind of vague, blatant statements that are not proved by anything, right? By any facts. We need to do the opposite, right? We don't create content for the hype. We don't create content for the likes. I often hear a question about metrics, and we'll cover the metrics at the end, but I'm always saying, for me, what is essential if like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 target buyer personas will consume that content and consider our company as the vendor, this is a success for me. It's not that this content will be consumed by thousands of random people who don't care about who we are and what we do, right? That's the key. This is the mindset that you need to apply, right? What is the content that you create? Can it influence the let's say, the way of thinking or the decision-making process of your target accounts? And ultimately, it's one-on-one content, right? And this is the content where the demand is high. How can we discover it, right? Obviously, these accounts are aware of you. You have, they demonstrate some level of engagement, so these are not the cold accounts. And these are the accounts with whom you already have some level of relationship with the buying committee. And you executed in-depth account research. I mean, not ChatGPT account research, but desk research combined with one-on-one conversations with the buying committee group. You pretty much understands their challenges, and you can see a strong product need evidence. I mean, your product need evidence. Why we don't call it the buying intent? Because there is only one definition of the buying intent. When a prospect tells you, hey, I want to buy your product, send me an invoice, set up an account for me or whatever. This is the buying intent. All the rest is engagement, right? And when you have account research, when you collect different signals, this is only the evidence that they have challenges that your product can help with. And your goal is to create a fully personalized solution, fully personalized content hub for these accounts, explaining how their challenges could be solved right? Not just talking about your product features, but explaining how their specific challenges could be solved and your product could become a part of it, right? This is the key. That also entails creation of business cases, what Vlad already mentioned, right? Why your solution? Why doing what you're offering right now? What can you expect from the implementation? What are the necessary resources for the implementation? What are expected milestones and, let's say, ROI out of this solution? Why? Because these people would have internal evaluations and internal conversations, and you need to armor your champion with enough arguments to protect your offer, right? Or to sell your offer to the rest of the team. This is the key. And depending on the buying committee structure, right? You might have people from different departments, and you need to tackle all of their potential concerns. This is what we put into one-on-one content. And if you look at this content holistically, right, you can see that it's pretty much connected to different buyer journey stages, right? How can you create awareness for the accounts that are not in the market? How can you persuade, or how can you attract the attention of accounts that are considering multiple solutions to consider your solution as one of them? And ultimately, how can you persuade the buying committee to buy your specific solution, your product? This is in a nutshell the ABM strategy. I think what could be good to do next is to dive deeper into the formats of the content. So maybe you can just cover the examples of what can be done for one-to-many, one-to-few, and one-to-one.
Absolutely. I'd love to share an example and mapped to the different stages of the buyer journey, but I think it would be also at the same time interesting to share the examples of format, but also I think I'll be able to address the question of Yoris, which I think is super relevant. And his question was, having the content is one thing, but making sure that the right people get it. Distribution to the people that matter is another. Can you elaborate on that? And I'd love to do that. So if you'd allow me to do a quick share here, I can't. Yes, I'm able to do it. Yes. So we use, let me see, can I do this a little bit? Make it a little bit bigger? No, I can't. Okay, sorry about that. Anyhow, let me just dive in and hopefully it will all make sense. So Andre was talking about low intent, medium intent, high intent. The way we practically approach this within account-based marketing programs is looking at 3 lists. We call this, and we did an episode diving deeper into this, how we prioritize accounts, etc. But we use 3 lists. The first list is so-called cluster ICP. So we don't make a list that is larger than one ideal customer profile. Cluster, if you remember, cluster are accounts that share challenges, right? Because if they don't share challenges, it is very difficult to have a consistent, meaningful content strategy for them, right? So you first build a list of target accounts in a cluster. A cluster, like I said, was a specific use case. Let's say companies that went through mergers and acquisition and are looking to onboard new employees. Whatever the cluster is, you will be able to identify those accounts and how do you distribute content to them, and also what kind of content can you be using there. Well, there's basically kind of 2 ways in which you can distribute this content. The first way is obviously using paid distribution to those named accounts and the target buyers within those accounts. You can use LinkedIn or account-based marketing, account-based advertising solution for that. LinkedIn is good enough. We like to also immediately involve our salespeople, because one of the biggest challenges that we see in the market, especially with sales, is that lack of recognition, lack of awareness, and we want to create awareness. If you remember, that's exactly what Andrei said. So these are accounts that have low buyer intent, They may not even be aware of us, that we exist. So we need to create that awareness and recognition. And if you now create content that is, for example, native to LinkedIn or communities or where our buyers are, so let's say to LinkedIn, social content, and we distribute this content to those target accounts, and we share it on the profiles of our salespeople, and we use, for example, thought leadership ads to distribute this content to those target accounts and buyers. Suddenly, we're not only creating awareness, we are also helping position our salespeople as quote unquote trusted advisors versus yet another sales rep trying to get your attention. Okay, so speaking about formats of content that are appropriate here, I mentioned already content for social or communities, any content that actually lends itself to sales engagement. Another type of content that works really well for awareness is events or webinars. And the reason is, again, they lend themselves very easily to sales engagement. So, which brings me to the second part of how we distribute the content. We actually use our salespeople. They help us distribute the content. We are sharing via their profiles. They're connecting to our target accounts on social, on communities, and they're sharing that content. And with paid promotion, we are boosting that. Now, when I say this content lends itself to engagement, it means that every time somebody is engaging with your content on social or on communities, you immediately can turn that engagement into a conversation. If your content is on the relevant topic, your conversation is going to be on the same topic, so the topic is going to be relevant. That's why it's so important to have content that is actually reflecting the challenges of your target account, because this is the conversations that you want to have very naturally coming from that content engagement and flowing into that sales conversation. Okay, so this is in terms of like awareness creation. The second list that we build are accounts that still fit our cluster ICP, but they have some awareness, they have some engagement. We don't really know if they're immediately, if there is an opportunity. We call them future pipeline because there is some awareness, there is some interest, there is some engagement, there is, let's say, medium level of intent, but there is definitely no intent yet, and we don't know enough of that. We didn't validate their need. We are not sure. We don't have that insider information. And our goal for those accounts is to increase the sales engagement, increase conversations to help our salespeople, one, build a relationship with the target buyers, and two, get this insider information to be able to validate their insights. So what's the role of content there? Well, one of the best ways for salespeople to get some insider information, engage buyers in conversation, is by content co-creation. So we do that a lot. We co-create, we work together with our salespeople to co-create content with our buyers. We could write about a specific topic, get some quotes, or run surveys, or get some quotes from their connections and feature them in a piece of content that could be as simple as a LinkedIn post where you're sharing insights that you'll learn through conversations with other people in the industry, up to something like a podcast or industry research where this is like much more formalized, where marketing is also taking a more active role in creating that content, right? So content collaborations, but also, for example, if you take a webinar or an event, somebody registering for a webinar about a very relevant topic, now you can instruct your salespeople to reach out to everybody who registered there, as you can see here as an example, right? And just saying, hey, thanks for registering. We are working with the subject matter expert to present this topic, and he asked me, or she asked me, to collect the questions that our audience has. Could you please share with me what is the top challenge that you're looking to learn more about during this event? We'll collect these insights and present it to our speaker to make the event much more relevant for you. So again, you are creating multiple touch points using this content. You're getting some information from those buyers that you can then later on use. So I mentioned different formats. I mentioned how we distribute this. And then obviously, once we go to the third list, which is what Andre already explained, higher intent, where we know they have an active need, there is an existing relationship. We are in a conversation, two-way conversation with them. Maybe there is not yet a sales qualified opportunity, and our goal is then to create that sales qualified opportunity and help the champion basically show the priority of why we should be even looking at a solution like this. Here we are going down to one-on-one content. Andre was mentioning content hubs. We're going to share another example of one-on-one content, where in those content hubs we will share specific answers to the specific questions that our buying center has. We're going to share the business case that we might create together with the champion, or for researcher. In this case, we are basically using the engagement from the previous step to have the conversation and drive meetings, etc. One more thing that I wanted to mention about this, as we were looking at the different formats, as we were looking at distribution and how this maps to one-on-one, one-to-many, and one-to-few, is that if you would actually dive a little bit deeper into this example, you will see that all these different activities and pieces of content are connected in a kind of a journey, right? So we were talking about a specific challenge. In this case, the cluster of accounts were companies looking to just start, go from zero to ABM. We have invited one of our clients to do a live case study webinar there. We were posting about the same topic online. We were using this engagement to reach out to the people who were engaging with that post, in this case, start a conversation, invite them to the webinar, then connecting with the people who registered to the webinar, getting some information also through the sign-up form, and finally also going from these insights and maybe questions they asked during the webinar to continue that conversation, book the calls, eventually create a sales deal. So I just wanted to share that it's also not about having some content for top of funnel, some content for the middle of the funnel, as we usually think about it, some content for the bottom of the funnel, but also thinking about, okay, how are these different steps connected? How can we actually create these multiple touch points, and how can we connect them into kind of a journey that makes sense for our buyers?
And so, I would like, if you don't mind, I just wanted to add 5 cents here, because let's share it with you one of the playbooks, right, that contains multiple steps. I feel what is really important to emphasize here. You see that we embed a lot of progressive profile and touch points, or basically account research touch points, collecting insights on sign-up form, right? Even, for example, for today's episode, when you sign up, we give you an optional field to ask questions that you want us to cover during the event, right? Aside from this, we can reach out, we can ask multiple questions, like you can see in these examples, and these insights feed again our account-based content strategy. Let's say the broader insights about this is like my challenge, or this is the question that I have. For example, the question that Joris mentioned, right? How to distribute the content to target accounts. That could be our next either LinkedIn post or newsletter or blog or podcast episode or webinar, right? We could repurpose it into multiple formats. Now, I just want to make it practical, right? So we can also take it and create fully personalized, let's say, content for Joris, right? Saying, hey, Joris, here's how, and obviously that entails in more in-depth account research, and luckily we have quite good relationship, sharing a few beers in Antwerp and Belgium. So I think we can get these insights pretty easily. But jokes aside, I mean, we need to invest time and do the in-depth account research. From that perspective, we need to understand the sales team structure, the marketing team structure, and then map out the content distribution, right? How his team can distribute the content to different target accounts and in multiple formats, and maybe craft some, like, let's say, make some simulation, right? Make some kind of fake examples of how that might look like, just to give a pretty good overview. So this is essential. Every insight that you collect should be tailored to your account or incorporated in your account-based content strategy. It is never static. It's a dynamic program, and you always prioritize it. And the second point, quite often, I think this is important to nail down. Content teams usually have the content calendar, right? They create kind of the outline of their weeks or months. Hey, this week we are going to post about this week we are going to post about that. But if you guys have attended the previous episode with Ellen Carros from Certain, from our client, she actually reflected a little bit on this. She said, yeah, traditionally I have this content calendar, but in ABM it kind of became messy, but not in a bad way. It means that we see the engagement coming from the strategic account. And for us as the team, the key priority is to generate sales opportunity, but to generate it in a value-added way for this account. So from that perspective, we put away our, let's say, content plans for the week, and we start prioritizing what kind of content can we create using this insight, right? What our buyers might need or appreciate. And this is the approach, right? So you need to forget about the static content calendars. This is another difference, right, when it comparing to the standard content marketing approach, and you make it dynamic. So this is one of the keys. By the way, I wanted to very quickly share, if you don't mind, Vlad, if you can stop screen sharing, I would share one of the documents that we have in our, give me a second, guys. We have quite a lot of these content playbooks, and we can talk hours, or maybe even just create, a webinar around this. So if you are interested, because I feel we won't be able to cover all of this today, we have our on-demand ABM course. I will drop the link in the chat so you can go through these playbooks on your own and see multiple examples on how to execute these programs, right? Because we have 13 minutes left, I would love to leverage this time to answer the questions from everybody who came to the episode live, and then cover the questions that came from our community. I feel only the last point would be wrapping up the KPIs and metrics, and then we can switch to the questions. Let's maybe just very simply wrap up the key KPIs for account-based content strategy. Would you pick it up?
Absolutely, thank you. Basically, what we said at the beginning, content resource or resources should be part of your ABM team, not part of a siloed team, which sometimes is the case, which actually means that they share the KPIs with their team. And the KPIs for any ABM program, without having to go into a lot of details, we did a lot of material. We have a lot of material in that we did mention that in many different podcasts. But essentially, your main KPIs of your ABM program will have to be aligned with the goals. So if your goal is net new revenue, you will be looking at the KPIs such as the net new revenue and the net new pipeline you have generated, the average size of your deals, ACV, the win rate as KPIs, right? If you're looking at expansion, we'll be looking at expanded revenue, etc. These will be the KPIs. Now, when it comes to KPIs, I think in metrics, it's important to also use the leading metrics. There was a great post today by Andre about leading metrics, especially if this is a new program that you're rolling out. Having also early indicators and leading metrics is important. Things that we like to look at are related to the account engagement and conversations that are being started, and are related to booking discovery calls that eventually should lead to pipeline. But these are early indicators that really help first of all, I think like aligning the expectations on what is reasonable to expect and how quickly, but also to keep the team motivated and keep the momentum. Now, with respect to content specifically, like I said, they have the shared KPIs, but there are a couple of mindset shifts when it comes to evaluation, how you are evaluating the performance of your content. So like typically we might be looking at things like, traffic, views, engagement. Well, in the case of account-based marketing, you can be looking at engagement, right? But you're basically looking at target accounts. Like we don't really care how many people like our posts or whether they are performing really well, as long as the target accounts are actually seeing them and engaging with them. The second mindset shift is even like sales, how actively sales using it with it, and how successful is sales in using the content and the content playbooks to start conversations with target buyers. I think this would be definitely an early indicator to look at to evaluate the performance of your content. And the final point there, or the final mindset shift, if you like, is not looking at individual pieces of content and saying, okay, what is the ROI of this piece of content? Knowing that each and every piece of content that you're sharing, preparing, and every playbook is just one touch point in a global journey. So this is what we want to be looking at as well. We want to look at it more holistically. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense in terms of the metrics, and I'm also really looking forward to jump into this question. So let's just do it, Andrei.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel we need to start with the question from people who came live to the session. So Nikolai, we answered your question first. So let's cover Nikolai's question. How did, if at all, your ICP or your client's ICPs change after we started using more and more ChatGPT and other similar tools? I think that AI can't impact your ICP, to be honest. So your ideal customer profile purely depends on your on your product value, right? It's combined with your product market and with what challenges your product solves, and then with your historical data, right? What are the best companies that actually this product helps? So ChatGPT doesn't influence the ICP development at all. If
Yeah, maybe just add 2 quick cents on that. So like fundamentally, obviously, it doesn't change who your ICPs are. You have an opportunity to use these tools in 2 ways. To use some of the I select 2 main use cases which could be helpful. The first one is in processing the data that you have collected about your customer. So if you have customer service, customer interviews, case studies, etc., you can use AI to help you derive the patterns from there, to derive those common use cases, challenges, etc. So I found this very helpful, which is one of the essential building blocks of your ICP. And the second part is in researching your ICP target customers. There are many tools today for account research and enrichment which can help you, but they can, the best way to use them is first understanding the basics and what is the information that you want to do this, doing this process manually the first few times, and then using tools like Clay or Relevance AI, etc., to then scale this up and be able to collect more data, more relevant data, and from more target accounts. These are 2 specific things that can help with 1, ICP development in terms of the analysis, and 2, in identifying those ICP accounts from the different sources that you have on the web and online.
Awesome. If you guys have questions, it's the right time to drop them in the chat. I see already a question from Ken. So let's pick it up. How have you successfully counseled patients given ABM generally takes time to impact new logos pipeline? You're absolutely right. And this was partially what I wrote about today. The key point is that you need to set up the right expectations from the beginning, right? And if you have paid attention to the account classification like Vlad described, this is what we do to set up the right expectations. With every initiative, and it's not limited to account-based marketing, any initiative that is new to organization, the first question you will hear, what can we expect out of it and how fast? Right? That doesn't matter if you bring ABM or demand gen or any initiative, in-person event, executive dinners, you name it, right? Now, you want to make sure that your program won't be shut down in a few weeks just because there are no leads, no sales opportunities, whatever. How can you set up the right expectations? Whenever you start building your account lists, you need to segment them into 3 groups. The first bucket is what we call the cluster ICP list. These accounts don't know you, and you have no idea if they are buying what is the actual challenge. Not assumed challenge, but actual challenge, right? So what is the logical goal with these accounts? It's creating awareness, because if they don't know you, these are purely cold accounts you can't sell, right? And you need to define with sales and with executives clear, tangible criteria that you can apply and call a specific account, like account that knows us, account that is vendor aware, right? That's critical. The second list is what we call future pipeline accounts. These accounts that hit your engagement threshold or your awareness criteria, but you still have no idea if they are buying or what is their actual need. From ABM perspective, what is the logical goal? The logical goal is to map out the buying committee, start engaging with this buying committee, and run in-depth account research to validate the needs, right? So the logical metric for this list would be how many engaged and researched accounts you have, right? And lastly, you have active focus list of the accounts, right? These accounts that hit all these boxes, they know you, they hit your engagement criteria, right? You know their challenge, and you can work on fully personalized offers. If we'll come back to our diagram of like one to few, one to many, one-on-one, this is where you start creating fully personalized offering for these accounts, right? And now, how can you set up the right expectations? You might take the sales list, you might work with sales together on the initial list. You finish your list, start the sub-segmentation. And in most cases, this is what we observe. In most cases, you will have 0 accounts in active focus. Then maybe I would just share with you the percentage. Maybe like 10%, that would be the maximum of total accounts that you have selected in future pipeline list, and then 90% of your accounts in, let's say, this cluster ICP, called accounts that don't know you and you have no idea about the needs of these accounts. The next step that you need to take is to ask your stakeholders and sales. This is our reality. What realistically can we expect from this? Knowing historically that our sales cycle length is X months, right? Let's say your sales cycle, historical sales cycle is 12 months, which if we'll translate it into buyer journey, it means that the buyer journey could be up to 2 years, right? That's the reality, because we measure sales cycle from our touch points, but the buyer journey is way longer. So this is the question that you need to answer. And when you present it that way, it drastically changes the expectations of these people, right? If you see clearly, and everybody agrees with these definitions, right? And with the playbooks, when you see and look at these accounts, right? And this setup, it usually changes the mind of people. And then you start reporting on these metrics, because the point is simple. The key metric for you is account velocity. How fast you can move one account from one list to another, right? And lastly, how fast can you generate sales opportunities with active focus accounts, where the, let's say, account to pipeline conversion happens. So from that perspective, when you make it visible and you share it with executives and sales and ask this question, knowing our historical sales cycle lengths, right? What is realistic to expect with this list? It changes a lot the perception. So I think this is the approach that you need to take. Let me see what.
There's one more from Mike. If I can take this very quickly. Basically, Ike is asking how they determine what is thought leadership content. Now, I don't want to really have any kind of semantic discussions, but it's a good question to highlight a couple of things. I think when you're thinking about content here, it's important to create first, you want to create content that is going to attract the attention of your buyers. We are selling to sometimes senior buyers from large companies, enterprise accounts in a lot of cases, and the kind of run-of-the-mill Me Too content, or a lot of content that is being produced in B2B content factories doesn't meet that mark, right? So what is the type of content that we want to create? Well, first of all, we want to create content that really addresses the challenges of those target accounts. It has to be relevant. Now, these accounts are, like Andre was explaining several times, they are kind of stuck in their status quo. They are not going to change unless they have a real strong reason to change. So your content should also help challenge that status quo. So having a strong opinion or a point of view, and basically challenging the status quo of many of the target accounts and the industry in general will help you with sowing the seeds, as Andre mentioned, starting that change management process, right? But also, very importantly, it will also help your content actually being seen, attracting the attention, because again, if there is no point of differentiation, if it's like a Me Too safe content, like a lot of brands might be producing, it's not going to stand out, and your content will need to somehow stand out in order to be seen. So without calling this, whether this is thought leadership or not, it needs to challenge the status quo. It needs to be hyper relevant. It needs to be about their strategic top of mind challenges. And it needs to come from SMEs. It needs to come from experts. It needs to be in depth. It needs to demonstrate your expertise, because if you're not demonstrating your expertise, again, your content is not going to do its job. So whether that's you call this thought leadership or not, I don't really care. But try to hit these 3 points when you're creating your content.
First of all, guys, thanks a lot for your feedback. I appreciate it, and happy to hear that you enjoyed this session. There was a question from Archana about the slides. There were no actual slides, so we used some diagrams that we posted on LinkedIn recently just to support our, let's say, narrative. So if you need these specific diagrams, you can just open mine or Vlad's LinkedIn profiles and look at the recent posts. This is where you can find it. Or if you need, I don't know, like this infographics in high resolution, then just send me a message, because there were actually no slides, to be honest. So I feel we need to cover a few great questions from our community before we'll wrap it up. There was a fantastic question from Dave Wood. But what is the best framework of content generation for all stages of the funnel, and combining that with nurture touch points needed before BDRs get engaged with the prospects? I think we covered this a little bit, and thanks a lot for copying this one, so I will present it, right? The entire point here is that our content strategy should be holistic. We need to have this, let's say, types of content that are aligned with the different level of intent and current buyer journey stage, right? That's the first thing. The second one is that this content should be grouped into cluster, right? Cluster is a specific use case. And then this use case, quite often companies, they think in terms of accounts, but you need to think in terms of your target buyer persona, right? I would break it down like what this use case means for the power users, because these people would be using your product daily. Or if you're a service company, these people will be working with you, right, regularly. What are their jobs to be done? What are their challenges, right? What is their current status quo? What are the conversations they have internally, right? what are some strategic initiatives they're working on, what are their KPIs. Then you have economical buyers, right, or champions, people who are leading specific initiatives. They might not be active users of your product, but they lead business initiatives, right? And lastly, you have decision makers. So holistically, you start thinking about this cluster or use case decomposition, right? What are their jobs to be done? What are their challenges? What are the inefficiencies? What's they try doing and what are the wrong ways they take, right? If you look at our LinkedIn content, this is what we cover all the time. Then you start looking at those that have prioritized, let's say, the challenge. They accept the fact that they have the challenge, but they don't know how to solve it, right? There are always, any vendor has multiple alternatives how to solve their challenge. And then this would be the second group, which we call one-to-few. And lastly, one-to-one, this is fully personalized content, right? And this is what you create for the, let's say, active focus accounts. So in a nutshell, this is the framework that you need to have in place. And this is the nurturing. Basically, nurture happens only when your content challenges the status quo and seeds the right ideas, when it showcases the inefficiencies and presents the frameworks, the solutions, and basically builds a perception that you have know-how, you know, or you have the solution, right? So this way you get into the consideration set of your target accounts. This is the framework itself. Let's pick up one of the last questions. I feel that we can pick it up from Kevin. How do you implement a strategy with a small team or with a limited team? So sharing it with you.
I was thinking of taking that same question. So awesome. So Kevin asked this question. I think, first of all, we like to start each and every ABM implementation with a very limited personnel, very limited team. What does it mean? Very concretely, it means that from the marketing perspective, somebody who is leading that program, that should be their main focus, because at the end, if you don't have a person who is the owner of the process, that process is just not going to be maintained. So that should be their top priority. It's never possible to get them 100% of time, but like one person should kind of really own the process. Now, from the perspective of the content resource, I think the best answer was given by our guest on the previous podcast, Alan, who from Certain, who was our client and who shared, I think she mentioned something like 8-10 hours a week that she's spending on the content. And the way that she described it is, so let's say about 1.5 days, I would say, of her time goes on ABM. She's doing all sorts of other things. She is in charge of brand. She's in charge of other types of content within the company. And she also explained it that at the beginning, there is obviously more engagement as you're creating the strategy and setting things up. But once it's in, let's say, 30,000 feet, if it's flying, she's spending about day and a half. And also what's interesting, she went into explaining what exactly she does during that time. And a lot of it is, by the way, a lot of it is talking to the subject matter expert, talking to sales every week, seeing which accounts are coming, what their needs and priorities are, and adjusting her content strategy to those needs. And then obviously also creating the content. And finally, in terms of limited resources, we mentioned this already, but just to wrap it up, also somebody from sales. Again, ideally, they should have at least a day or two a week to dedicate to this program. In reality, there will be weeks where they will be able to dedicate more time. There will be weeks when they will be, busy with client calls and not be able to dedicate as much. But it's a very simple result. The more time they can dedicate, the more accounts they can process, the better the results they will get. It's as simple as that. And without them really having that commitment and that dedication, even if that is, a couple of hours each day, or 1 to 2 hours each day, it will be very difficult to actually see the results of that pilot program. That is, like I said, during the pilot, when you're starting, in the context that you mentioned. So hopefully that gives you a good answer.
And let's cover the last question from Barry. I can't leave it unanswered. So we always appreciate great questions coming from you. What was the best piece of ABM content that someone else used on you that engaged you or created a sales conversation? Would you start first, Vlad?
I can honestly only think of great examples from our clients that worked really well. I immediately thought of the so-called account love letter that one of our clients wrote, which was basically a LinkedIn post where he found the news about the target account and wrote about reflections. So they were selling some sort of an AI solution for manufacturing. Their manufacturing client won a huge project, and he was, describing the project, what's required, and reflecting on how AI could help them, make this project into a success. But the best part of it was not what was visible on LinkedIn, him sharing this post, which, by the way, got a lot of traction, which was interesting. But actually, at the back of that, the kind of conversation that this allowed him to start. So I mean, this was for me like a highlight example of a content. It wasn't on me though. Maybe you have an example like that.
No, unfortunately, I have never experienced this as a potential buyer, and it's a pity because there are a lot of people or a lot of vendors who could do it, right? But you're absolutely right. I would say we hear quite often the opposite when our prospects or clients, right? When they become clients, when they share how our content influenced it. I think one of the recent ones happened last week. We had pretty fantastic feedback from one of the teams that we approached that way with a fully personalized approach. But besides this, I remember a very cool example. We hear quite often that people share, hey, we are sharing your infographics in our Slack or Teams, etc. But I believe one of the coolest things was when Vlad recorded a video about, hello, I'm a modern buyer. And then one of the prospects that we were talking to, one of the target accounts, I wrote about something different. And I think it was something about like budget in ABM or maybe it was even about scaling account-based. No, it was about scaling ABM to other regions from pilot program. And then the kind of the VP of marketing sent me an email with basically the picture of his team sitting in the meeting room, and they have a screen where the Vlad video was played, and he said, like, how you guys read our minds. Like, literally, we were talking about, right now we have offsite meeting, we were talking about like the broken playbooks we have and the modern buying process. And then we had ABM program in one region that we did successfully, but this program failed in another region. Are you guys reading our minds? How that's even possible? So that was probably one of the best examples.
And if you think I have a big head, you should see my head on that big screen that they were watching my video on.
Yeah, that was pretty much funny. And the reality is, to gain this effect, if you will, right? The key point is understanding your ideal customer profile very well, and then take this cluster approach and adjust your content to the different buyer journey stages, right? Don't ask ChatGPT to pretend as your target buyer persona. Do the necessary research and then involve subject matter experts, involve sales, listen to all the recent conversations with your target accounts, gain all of these insights, and incorporate them into your account-based content strategy. That being said, I feel we spent even more time than we wanted, but thank you so much, guys, for all the fantastic questions and engagement. We appreciate it a lot. I dropped the link in the chat to our account-based marketing course in case if you want just to look at other playbooks, because we can talk hours about different ways of engaging your target accounts. I also dropped the links to our Spotify and iTunes channels where you can subscribe to our podcast and listen to the previous episodes. And that being said, we are going to meet again next Wednesday, 4 p.m. So stay tuned. The announcement will come on Monday. Have a great rest of the week. Cheers.
Cheers.